Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology and welcome into the Vinyl Nation. I apologize the show didn't go up yesterday as it usually does because real work got in the way. Someday I dream about the day when I can just do Record-ology as a full-time career. As it is, it's part-time, but it's a very fun part-time. So today we are doing, I was trying to do a 1 year later on the Crosley Nomad, and unfortunately we cannot do that today because I've had this for 2 years, so it is a 2 year later video. So let's jump into it. I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are 2 years later, if I still like this thing. I must like it a little bit. I still have it, but would I recommend it, all that good stuff, and let's tear it apart. You're not going to want to miss this. So when you think about a Nomad, you may be thinking about this, or my personal favorite, this, which is the Corvette edition, and I think that's amazing. However, when the folks at Crosley think of Nomad, they think of this, because this is their Crosley Nomad turntable system. This is kind of first gen Crosley, as it were. This is from 2010-ish. I think this has been well discontinued. You may be able to find new old stock or just used one if you want to out there, but this is one that I really liked the design aesthetic of, on the computer at least, and I was really excited to get a hold of one. So a couple of years ago, my dream came true, and I got my hands on this. It's been interesting, and it's been different than I expected it to, and I've never known exactly what's on the inside until today. You guys, valued members of the Vinyl Nation, we're going to take this journey together, and it's going to be fun. So let's get right into it. Let me preface this by saying overall, I was pretty unimpressed with this. I was pretty disappointed, but not as disappointed as I was with the spinneret. Oh, I wanted that thing. I thought it was so cool. It had a magnetic cartridge, as does this. 3 speeds, everything you could want. And then we got a hold of the thing, and it was rough. It was rough, and it felt old. So this has sort of a design aesthetic, to me it reminds me of like a musical instrument case. The finish is sort of this burlap kind of material that hasn't held up. It's, kind of balling up in places, and, it's stringing out in places. And this was right off the bat. I mean, as soon as we opened it up, we noticed that these glued sections of burlap weren't adhered right, and it was bizarre because it was cut weird in certain places. So let's go ahead and open it up, and I'll show you what I mean. So, on paper, and that's the other thing. I don't know why this drives me nuts that this comes off on this one. On paper, this looks great because this has been a good mechanism. This is a departure from the typical Skywin type of mechanism. It has a magnetic cartridge, an AT3600L. It's got an adjustable counterbalance. It's 3 speeds, 45 adapter. These usually, perform really well. This is the same mechanism on the Collegiate and others, and it's usually a really great, starting point for a magnetic, sort of a second level, next level up suitcase kind of a player. But there's an issue with this one, and I'll get to that in a minute. However, my first thought 2 years ago, and remains the same, is how janky the cover material is, like how it's like just cut roughly, and this looks like a school project. You know what I mean? I have hardly used it. It looks like it's stained too, and it's not, but it's bubbling up. It just looks poorly done, and that's a shame because this was probably, I don't even know how much this thing was, probably $150-ish, maybe even more. So yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that I do like the overall design aesthetic, and I think that this could be made into a cool design, although Crosley's moved past this. This is never going to materialize again. As with many of the sort of retro Crosley designs, this takes inspiration from a vintage unit, as you can see here, which is fine. I think it's cool. The idea of bringing back vintage designs is a good thing. I think that's totally fine. And modern marketing is very keen to make sure all their licensing is legit and their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted. So I've got no problem there. Let's look at the back. It is a 12-volt machine. Some people laugh when I say the magnetic cartridges indicate that it will be a 12-volt machine and vice versa, but it's just the way it is. So that preamp circuit requires a little extra voltage, and that's how they do it with a 12-volt power supply. It does have a line output So with that and, you know, good powered speakers or a stereo system, you're going to get fine sound, no issues there. It's also got an aux input, a headphone jack. Always like my headphone jacks in the front, not in the back. It is a USB turntable, which is cool. You know, if you want, that feature is a good feature to have, and they're putting those on even higher end turntables. Even the LP7 from Audio-Technica, $800 has a USB. Just to have that option is great. And one of these days, I'm going to do another video. I've done one before, but I'm going to do another video about how to restore a record using Audacity and a USB turntable. It's really not that hard. So on the bottom here, again, because this material is so, I mean, it's just a rough burlap material. The labels aren't, you know, sticking to it that good. This is officially the Crosley CR620, let's see, 6R232A BR. So the BR, the last two characters usually indicates the material, the color or whatever. So BR for burlap or brown, I don't know. It's sort of a light tan color. I think it's coming across fairly accurately. QC passed, manufactured November of 2014. And if I zoom out a little bit here, you can see it's got rubber feet, which are just screwed on here. I'm not sure how we're going to get into this unit. You know what? I do know. We're going to go in through the plinth. I can tell you right now because it's got 4 screws, and we'll open it up. It's pretty, you know, shallow, probably 3 inches right there. The speakers are in the side. I'm not sure the size of the speaker, probably a 4x6 speaker. Having the speakers diametrically opposed to each other like that does not bode well for good stereo separation. You may think, oh, that's great. That's the most separated it could get. But in actuality, that just makes the sound spread, you know, all across the space. Interesting material, like this kind of corded wire material here. Almost like spring-loaded wire. It's very strange. It's cool. I mean, it's just very odd. But anyway, yeah, so when you turn this on, even if you stand in front of it, you don't feel like you're getting that stereo image. The speakers are just spreading wide. So this is like to fill up space. Kind of like those classroom players in more ways than one. Even with this kind of shape of this indentation right here in the larger front area, if you were to cut it off right there and just have it from here forward, it kind of looks like a miniature classroom player. And those have a speaker on one side and sometimes a speaker or just a vent on the back so that it has bi-directional sound, which is different than stereo. It just means it's going 2 different places. So that is my experience, is that there's not great stereo separation. It just kind of fills the room, which leads me to my main gripe about this player, which we're going to get to next. In fact, we're going to get to it by demonstrating it. Okay, you'll notice the audio sounds weird. That's because I switched to the stereo microphone on the front of the camera. So we'll be able to, you know, judge for yourself about the stereo separation on this. I'll reposition it here in a second. So what we're looking at is a 7-inch record. This is a Miele telegraphic transmission device. And yes, that is a picture of Oscar Wilde on the front. And that's cool. So I think that a 7-inch record looks a lot better on here than on a small platter than does a full-size 12-inch record. But this will support, you know, up to 12 inches. Operation is simple. You got on and off and volume down here. And then the typical auto stop switch and the 3-speed select up there. Now this, although it looks like a 33 RPM record, because this is a UK record, this is almost surely 45 RPM. So we are going to flip to 45. Let me look at this up close and make sure. Okay, and now, oh yeah, one of my main gripes about this mechanism, my main gripe about it is that it doesn't have a lift. There's no tone arm lift, and you guys know me and, you know, manually queuing records, my hands are just shaky. So, all right, let's go ahead and give this a listen in stereo. Figured out the main issue yet? Let's go on to the next track. I guess same track, further on in the track is what I meant to say. All right, let's flip it to the other side. And can you guess it yet? What the problem is with the record player? And actually, this is somewhat hard to demonstrate the issue that this guy has on a video like this, due to the automatic gain of the microphones and the audio processing of YouTube. So you may not get it. There were some hints on what the issue could be, by the way. sounds like it's too fast, doesn't it? Let's scoot forward and see if we can get some vocal and verify. Not 78. I think it is 45. Okay. The problem with this record player is it's way too quiet. It is so quiet, and that's frustrating. And I don't have the best hearing in the world, but I don't need my volume cranked all the way. My wife would probably disagree with that, but I don't need my music cranked to 10. However, I'm kind of a 5 to 6 kind of a person. This music cranked on this system is probably in the neighborhood of a 3 on the 1 to 10 scale of volume. It is quiet. And you may say to yourself, well, you're the first one to say, Mr. Record-ology Dude Man, that, it's probably a one-off issue. However, my friend Fartamark, he also had one of these and his had the exact same issue. So I don't know. Maybe it's a design issue. Speaking of design, it's time to dig inside and see what this thing's made of. Now, if you were pretty handy in the electronics world, you might be able to get in this thing and make, some changes, perhaps different capacitors, resistors, whatever, to increase the quality. And, if you could do that, then more power to you. If you don't want to deal with that, then you might want to move on, because this definitely suffers from volume issues. So let's go ahead and peek under that. I had a bad thought. By the way, these are just wood screws, as we often see with these types of units. So you'll see wood pulp coming out of there. This is probably a plywood or some kind of fiberboard material wrapped in this burlap, and then sort of a leatherette wrap on this. I got this bad thought that, did we actually review this already? Or did we already open this up? If we did, my apologies, but you're going to have to suffer through it again. I don't know. I know we opened up the Collegiate. I don't know if we opened this guy up. I don't think we did. All right, so I've got the 4 screws off. I guess we can take this off. Oh yeah, I remember now. Last time we did take this. We took it down to at least this point. And the last time I did so, I lost the E-clip. And I get a lot of advice on that. And by the way, there's a little peg on the bottom of these, and this one doesn't have it, but it actually doesn't not work that well. But yeah, you can see sort of that leatherette material there. The mechanism is shock mounted, but I want to take the whole thing out. So how do we do that? Okay, so I'm pulling up firmly on this. I don't want to yoink it out too hard because, there's still a screw back there. How many people knew that I forgot a screw? That's really bad. And if it falls apart and it breaks, you know what? I'm not going to be brokenhearted. I don't want to be callous about that, because I know some people, it's so hard to afford a record player. So it always angers me when you see people being wasteful on YouTube or whatever. I never want to be like that. Besides, somebody likes quiet music, just fits the bill. I mean, it's not going to damage records. It's got no issue really, other than the fact it's quiet. And from an aesthetic standpoint, it doesn't look as good as it, or isn't built as good as it could be. I don't think. Okay, this is wedged in there tight. Good Lord. Okay. Oh, yeah, just as I figured, there's nothing to it. Okay, the speaker cabinets are enclosed. That's a good thing. That's completely separated. Typical small circuit board. I mean, the brains of the unit are back there, so all the jacks are going to go into that. It's hard to position this, so my apologies there. This is the board that is underneath the start and stop switch. Is it? Yeah, that's the start and stop switch. That's the bottom of it right there. I mean, all the components look fine. We've got actual clips, wire braids, all that good stuff. You can see the bottom of that leatherette cover. There's the contact switch for the tone arm position sensor. The motor, typical JYK motor or thereabouts. Very, very similar components. And yeah, that's about all there is to it. There's that material. Interesting how they have a couple pieces just kind of cut and blocked out like that. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Obviously, this is entry-level stuff. Let's look at the cabinet, as it were. I don't want to rip any of these cables out. Pretty simple. I mean, it's just literally a box. This is literally an empty box, and then the speakers are completely enclosed. So, if we were to peel back this stuff, it might reveal screws. I'm trying to see if I can feel any obvious screws. I'm not 100% sure. And I don't think there's a way to get into it from this side. Let me look a little bit closer and see if there's a way we can peek in those cabinets. So I decided to take one for the team and just rip up this corner a little bit. And where a screw would be, there just isn't one. There's a lot of glue, a lot of dried glue. And I feel like this might have just been glued together, these cabinet pieces, with what really amounts to really thick cardboard / fiberboard material. I don't even know. It's almost not even up to the level of plywood, but it's interesting. I mean, it gets the job done, right? All right, guys, so major payoff moment for you here. You don't have to deal with putting this back together, but I do. But that's okay. You can click out of this and go on to the next Record-ology video, because that's going to do it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. Subscribe. You're already, what am I talking about? You're Nation members. You're more than subscribed. You're really, really in this, and I appreciate it so very much. So that's going to do it for now. We'll see you guys tomorrow.